Welcome to the Raw Spotlight podcast, where we feature inspiring leaders in the B2B space and share their unique stories. Let's get started with the show.
Hi, I'm Victor Huynh, your host for the Raw Spotlight. We're here to feature leaders of the B2B businesses, niche markets, large-scale brands, local businesses, and the public sector entities to share their innovative strategies and inspiring success stories. In previous episodes, we covered Josh McIntyre from McIntyre Keenstone Property Management, the Honorable Andrew Chow from the City of Diamond Bar, who is also the co-founder of Wealthify Partners. And today's sponsorship message is brought to you by Ready Artwork, where we deliver uniquely tailored B2B digital marketing services to facilitate the long-term growth of your business. At Ready Artwork, we combine data-driven insights with innovative designs to help your business thrive in the digital age, from SEO and digital advertising to web development and email marketing. We have experts who help companies uncover their growth potential. To learn more, visit readyartwork.com. Welcome to today's episode. Our guest is Dylan Feik. Dylan was appointed City Manager of Monrovia in October 2019. During the past 5 years, Dylan has helped guide the city through COVID-19, responding to the Bobcat Fire, and rebuilding Monrovia Canyon Park following the devastating floods in 21 and 22. Currently, he's excitedly working on projects to enhance the Monrovia Public Library, renovate the Monrovia Community Center, and enhance Recreation Park with new modern amenities. He's earned a Master of Public Administration degree from the University of Kansas in Lawrence and a Bachelor of Arts degree from Weber State University in Ogden, Utah. Dylan and his wife, Kira, live in Monrovia and raise their kids right here in town. He enjoys mountain biking, hiking, and working on his vintage classic cars, including 4 Ford Mustangs and a Chevrolet pickup. Prior to working in Monrovia, Dylan served as City Manager of Calistoga, located in California's Napa Valley. In addition, Dylan has local government management experience working in the cities of Auburn, California, Knoxville, Iowa, and I need help with that. Olathe, Kansas. Thank you. All right, so we're just going to jump into questions here. So, Dylan, how was living and raising your family in Monrovia shaped your perspective on both as a resident and city manager?
Hey, Victor, thanks so much for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to talk and share a little bit more about me. I think first and foremost, being a city manager in a small town like Monrovia, I think is, my secret is it's the best job. I have been manager now for a little over 5 years, and not a day goes by that I don't just think about how grateful I am to serve this community. It's an amazing community, a lot of great people. And it's actually the first place that my wife and I have purchased a home. We knew right when we discovered Monrovia that this is where we wanted to raise our family. And so for all the transitions and movements, it's kind of one of the pathways of a city manager is you have to go to where the open spaces are. Every city only has one.
Right.
And when we discovered Monrovia, we just thought we hit the holy grail and this is where we want to be. So we ended up buying a house. Interestingly, we bought it right at the beginning of COVID. The weekend that they were scheduled to do the open house is when the county came out with the safer at home order and said no more in-person open houses. And so it was just a really odd time to be purchasing a home, but we were able to buy the home and immediately connect with our neighborhood. And my kids all go to school here in Monrovia. And, I think just like, becoming a father makes me a better city manager. I also think that being a resident of Monrovia also makes me a better city manager. When I go about my day and I'm looking at the, school pickup and drop off, when I see people complaining about it on social media, I complain about it too. And so I get to come into the office and try and figure out what kind of tweaks can we do to maybe solve a problem. And, even parks, I take my kids to the parks, whether we're playing at Rec Park or we're taking them to the ribbon cutting and grand opening of the new Rotary Park Playground project. That way we can show them and they can see kind of what I get to do as a city manager, and they get to experience it too. So in a lot of ways, I hope that being a resident Monrovia makes me better at my job. I sure feel like it does. Not a day goes by that I'm not making decisions that are also going to affect me. There are conflict of interest laws I have to follow. I can't make certain decisions or be involved in certain things that could financially impact me. But, if the city is talking about water and sewer rate increases, or we're talking about how we're going to do street sweeping, those are decisions that are going to affect me as a resident as well. And so I like to think that one makes me better at the other.
Awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. Because you've actually been a city manager in quite a few places. And the fact that you actually purchased your property here, I mean, it says a lot.
There's a school of thought where some managers, kind of like some business owners, you may set up your shop and have your livelihood there in your community, but sometimes it's nice to be able to step away and kind of have a break. And I think as a city manager, not a day goes by that I don't walk into a grocery store, pumping gas, or eating at a restaurant when I don't see someone that knows me. And sometimes they'll come up and, hey, I got a complaint, or sometimes you're trying to avoid eye contact.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I want to be known as a city manager that's accessible. That if you have a problem or a concern, you're able to get a hold of me, because I have a lot of pride in the work that I do, and I certainly have a lot of pride in this town. And I want it to be the best city it can be, and I'm going to play my role, or do my role to accomplish that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a similar story. We purchased this building that we're in 2015, and then a year later I moved here. So it's just something about Monrovia, it's amazing. Obviously, I didn't want to commute, but the fact that the community is so different from anywhere else we've been. We've kind of jumped around offices in a while, and this was the only city where I felt compelled to move here along with my work.
So, and you probably haven't regretted it a single time since, right?
No. It's awesome. All right, let's talk about hobbies then. So you're passionate about mountain biking, hiking, restoring classic cars. How do these activities help you stay grounded and bring balance to your life?
Oh, balance. So, work-life balance is an interesting concept. And I once heard a speaker talk about balance is not about, juggling all the balls at once. Balance is about deciding which balls you're going to juggle and when. And I thought that was so insightful for me, because my job can sometimes be it is a 24/7 job. Cities are constantly running. There's constantly stuff happening. There's always emergency response. There's always, street lights that need to be operating, water systems that need to be operating. We have special events that happen as needed, all these things. And so it's a never ending job. And so you have to find time where you can step away and relax and recharge and re-energize. And my favorite term has become trail inspection. So sometimes when I just need to get out of the office and it's been a long day, or there was a tough loss or tough issue that happened, I grab my bike, throw it on the back of the car, and I go up to the preserve for a trail inspection.
Nice.
And that's my excuse around the office for Dylan just needs to get out and, get some exercise and clear his mind. When I'm riding my bike, and I love riding my bike, but I'm always thinking about the beauty around me, or this awful hill that I'm riding up. And, it's hard for me to think about anything else other than just being there in the moment. So it's been the greatest, quickest way for me to recharge my batteries and kind of reset my mind. And just being right here next to the Wilderness Preserve, you have 1,450 acres of open space that's right there at your fingertips.
Yeah.
And it's just so wonderful. Classic cars. Also, I grew up as a young kid. My parents were into Ford Mustangs. I got my love and passion from them. I think the cars are something that I always cherished as a kid. And as I grew up, I had the means where I could acquire a few of them. Each one of the cars has some unique sentimental value to me. So it's not just collecting cars, it's specific cars. So like my very first car, which I still own, is a 1965 Mustang. It was just a rotted out piece of junk that my dad paid $1,000 for as an early graduation gift. And he and I spent the next 2 years of my high school era rebuilding and restoring this car together. And so it's a really fun car. It's white with blue racing stripes. It's just your basic Mustang coupe, but it was a father son project, and I learned a lot about my dad. He learned a lot about me. Learned a lot about cars while we were at it. Um, Another one of my Mustangs was it's called a California Special. My parents owned this car when I was it was before I had my first car. So they owned it when I was probably 13. They had it for a couple years and they sold it just because it was too nice of a car. And they had three growing boys and we did foster care growing up. And so there are always balls bouncing and bikes being laid down on the ground. And my parents are like, get that car out of the garage. And so they sold it. And about 7, 8 years ago, I had just the hankering to let me see if I can track this thing down. And I hired a private investigator and ended up finding the car in Dresden, Ohio. And I wrote a letter to the last known registered owner and just showed a picture of me as a kid in the car, one of the very few that I had. And I just told him a little bit about me and my family. And I said, I've always wondered where this was when I close my eyes and I think about Mustangs, this is the car I see in my mind.
Wow.
And so I sent him this letter and just said, I'd love to know how it's doing, where it's at. And so I left him my number and he called me like 2 weeks later and just said, hey, I got it. You want to, and we were talking and he said it was in great shape. And about 3 months later, he just said, I love your story. And if you want it, come out and get it. It's yours. So he ended up selling it to me and gave me a family deal on it. And, I think with each one of my cars, there's this connection to it. And, now my hope is as my kids get older, they've helped work on the cars. They all have, pet names for each one of the cars too. I want to pass the cars on to them if they want them. But I get a lot of joy out of, those old gasoline smells and hearing an old, 289 or 302 motor, run. So I have a passion pretty deep for Mustangs.
That's awesome. Well, you kind of covered my next question, which is sharing a favorite story. Do you have another favorite story about your cars? It could be any one of them.
There's so many stories. I could go on and on about, all of them that I have, but I think those stories are great ones. But a new kind of a favorite story was I saw a Mustang come up for sale. It's the latest one I bought. It came up for sale a couple years ago, and I had never seen anything quite like it. It had some really strange things about it that kind of just struck me. So it had it was a 1965 Mustang Fastback, and it was a GT. But it had sat underneath the Arizona sun for 30 years. And so it's baked. It's had better days.
Yeah.
But it had all the originality to it. And even when I opened up the trunk, it had the original dealer brochures that were still glued to the trunk lid.
Oh.
When I cleaned it out, I found teeth in the carpet. Bubblegum wrappers, old bazooka bubblegum wrappers from the late 60s.
Oh.
And so this car was really, even though it did not look very nice, it was really untouched. Mm-hmm. It still had from the Ford assembly line, the original chalk markings on the underside of the hood when they were marking it up for it's ready to be sent off to the dealership. So I found this car and it's got all this cool uniqueness to it. And as I'm going through it, I find this part in the back seat, and so there's this little box. I open it up, and this part is wrapped up in a newspaper. And I unroll this newspaper, and it's San Gabriel Valley Tribune, and it highlighted the Monrovia Kiwanis Club meeting from like the late 1960s.
Wow.
And it's like, it's just meant to be, and I think it's stuff like that that makes me get more passionate and connected to these cars, because the cars are just cars.
Right.
They're all insured. So if one got stolen or one was ever wrecked,
Mhm.
or, in the case of some of these wildfires I've been a part of, like,
Yeah.
if a car burns, it burns.
Right.
It's the stories that actually give them meaning to me.
Yeah. So you found it in Arizona, and they had the newspaper was from San Gabriel Valley?
Yep, covering little old Monrovia. And now this car, I'm the second owner. So now this
Wow.
car belongs to the Monrovia city manager.
Wow. That's awesome. For the audience, if you didn't notice, it's a second day. We're dressed differently because my internet went down. So we're gonna continue where we left off. I think the conversation was getting really good, and the next question coming up was about parenthood and leadership, right? So, Dylan, how has being a parent influenced your leadership style or the way you make decisions for Monrovia?
I always feel like, I think becoming a parent probably gave me more, education and knowledge over time than anything else I've ever done in my life, from college, high school, all that stuff, work experience. I think it shapes you and it molds you in ways that you never really expected to when you become a parent. All of my kids are very different, very unique personalities. And as a city manager, I think what's really hard is, we can't pick and choose favorites. We have to create systems and processes and policies that work equally across the board for everyone. But what it also allows for, I think, is sometimes there's individual consideration, and I think that's an area where being a parent has really helped me in being a city manager. So we had one situation many years ago where a homeowner basically was, kind of caught in between a rock and a hard place, where she needed to complete a project and she needed a little bit of city assistance to help her with the project. And now, the city can't, help and incentivize a person or an individual. But in this one particular case, we felt that rather than displacing a resident or creating these unnecessary hurdles and obstacles for her, the city was able to undertake some work and she was able to repay the city. And we did it in a way that was approved by city council. And it also kind of created a template that we could use down the road and have since used again for other individuals in a similar circumstance. And I think, what I really like about, again, being a father is, and how that translates over to being a city manager is, you still are going to raise your kids the same way, but you have to understand, when to do things a little bit differently with this child than with that child. And I think it's the same way in being, city manager. What I love about Monrovia is, we want to be a great place for people to live, to work, to play. And sometimes needs come up, and I want a business owner to be able to call me and say, Dylan, I got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I love being able to sit down and work through that problem and doing it in a way that I think still demonstrates the city's values, that doesn't create unintended consequences, that doesn't show favoritism. And my hope is that you could canvass Old Town anywhere in Monrovia, you could canvass every homeowner in Monrovia, and they all would say, like, oh, I know Dylan, and he helped me out with this one issue I had. And that's my hope, is that as a father who's constantly trying to adapt to these changes in your kids, that I'm able to kind of do the same thing as a manager.
Yeah, I have two boys, and it's already so tough. I mean, I can't imagine dealing with the entire city, right? But there are a lot of crossovers, and you can't just have a template for every person, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, now exploring Monrovia's natural beauty. You mentioned about how you take breaks and go on bike rides, right? Monrovia offers incredible outdoor opportunities. So what are your favorite trails or spots for mountain hiking? Yeah.
So lower clamshell has kind of been the go-to for the last couple of years. My favorite of all the trails is what they call the Canyon Truck Trail. It's the one that goes up past Trask and up to White Saddle Ridge, and just being able to kind of go up the mountain and turn around and look down and see City Monrovia, and to feel like you're up above everything else. That's always been my favorite trail. It's a meat grinder. It's hard getting up to the top, almost 4 miles, There's like almost zero flat or relief
Uh-huh.
until you get to the top and turn around. But that ride, I would ride it, and then the Bobcat Fire happened. It's been closed since September of 2020,
Mhm.
and so the last time I went out there was earlier this year, just to go do it. I hiked it, and so I haven't been on my bicycle up there for almost getting close to 4.5 years now.
Wow.
So I love that trail. I love Lower Clamshell Trail. I love going in the Cloverleaf Access Gate and just hanging out in the preserve. So we recently renamed Station 103 as Crudgington Station. That area just has a lot of history, a lot of natural beauty. And even if you just want a short ride or a short hike,
Yeah.
it's so easy to get up there. And that's where I tend to see the most deer, the most bobcats, the most hawks. And so it's a great place to go out for a quick out and back.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So now we're gonna transition into more um, of the job stuff, right? Um, in terms of your career in city management. So you've served multiple cities across the country before coming to Monrovia. How have these experiences shaped your approach to leadership in city management?
I didn't grow up wanting to be a city manager. I wanted to help people, and so I was a missionary for my church. I lived 2 years abroad, and when I returned home, it was I'm going to finish school. I'm going to figure out how I can make a difference in the world, and I'm going to do that by helping people. I didn't really care about making money. I didn't care about creating something with my hands, even though I liked cars and like riding bikes. All I want to do is help people. And I wasn't really sure how to do that. And so it was a class, Intro to Local Government. And the professor asked me, where does your water come from? And I was kind of floored. I had no idea. And I think it was the following week I was doing an unpaid internship in a city manager's office and thought, man, this is my jam. This is where I'm going to be. And I've never looked back. I've never wanted to do anything but be a city manager since then. All of the movement that I had made was about gaining job experience, working for the right supervisors. There was a little bit of adventure in there when, I moved out to Kansas to go to University of Kansas, which has the #1 rated program for city management training. So I went out there to get my formal education, but we met a lot of wonderful people. I had a great internship opportunity that came with the job afterward at City of Olathe, which is just a stellar community that is probably the best kept secret in the Midwest. Each one of these moves that I made, I knew I wanted to get closer to being a city manager or somewhere closer to my family. I could show you a list that I've had for many years about the kind of city I wanted to manage. I wanted to be close to the mountains. I wanted to be close to a metro, but not in the metro. I wanted a blend of old and new. I wanted to be busy and have a lot of stuff to do. I wanted to live in the town. I mean, it was Monrovia always. And so I told when the city council was interviewing me to be hired, I remember telling them, they asked me like, hey, what keeps you here? What makes us believe that you're not just going to be here for a couple of years and then move on to the next thing? And that very first moment, I told them Monrovia is the destination. This is the kind of place that someone like me wants to aspire to and wants to be at. And I asked them if they'll give me the lifetime employment contract right there, I'll take it. Because Monrovia is just such a special place, and this is the kind of place you want to be. So all that movement allowed me to have a lot of growth, allowed me to experience things in different ways. I mean, every city has different ordinances and different rules. The residents have different cultures. The sales taxes, property taxes are all calculated differently. And so I was always kind of forced to learn things a little bit differently. And I think it kind of fed my just inquisitive nature of just wanting to know, hey, how does this work or how is this done? And kind of help set me up to, Monrovia way is really about let's do what's best for Monrovia. And
Mhm.
so I'm able to like gather information, piece stuff together really well, and then present a plan on, hey, here's what I think is best based on this variety of factors. And I don't think I would have got there if I hadn't had that blend of experience from all over.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you've been having a checklist of coming here, right, throughout your journey. So that's
Yeah, I never looked for a job opportunity based on money.
hmm
And even job titles. I've had some interesting titles over the years. But I think what I really looked for was that it looked challenging or exciting.
hmm
Um, did that challenge or excitement build my experience? Was this the kind of thing that takes me to what that next step is going to be? Um, and I think that was really it. We didn't care about where it was. I applied for jobs. I've been interviewed in Vermont and in Florida. I had job offers from Wisconsin and Texas, and I was always open to going wherever. But I think what I could have told you was I knew what kind of city I wanted to be in. We had family in Arizona and in California, and so coming out westward, I think felt more natural just because our family was out here.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we really hit a home run when we landed in Monrovia. That's for sure.
Awesome. We're lucky to have you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so some of the challenges you navigated, right? You guided Monrovia through COVID-19, right? Right when you got here, the Bobcat Fire. What were some of the important lessons you learned during these times?
Oh, I've got a lot more gray hair and ear hair and nose hair because of some of these challenges. I think some of the lessons I've learned. One is to be authentic. Be honest, be yourself. When you're a brand new city manager and 3.5 months in, we're having to issue orders and you know are we going to implement the safer at home orders? We're going to close down businesses. We're going to close down city hall. What kind of protocols we're going to have in the workplace? I didn't have any rapport or trust built with people beyond maybe a very small circle because I was so new. And so how do you start kind of growing and expanding and kind of building your leadership credibility when you can't meet with someone face to face? I mean, that was hard. So it really created a shift in my mindset for the city manager update. I need to have a weekly tool to be able to communicate with people. And the funny thing is, we already had a weekly city manager update. There was a lot of usefulness to it, and we had something like 650 subscribers to it, whereas now 5 years later we have almost 13,000.
Wow.
And so we really wanted to grow that base to where it was a way people could connect with their government and get the information they sought. So like that was a really important lesson. I learned early on that I for 6 months I felt like a fish out of water, and I'd been a manager before, but Monrovia just felt like this is like major leagues, and I'm coming out of like high school coaching, right? So so I had this really neat kind of epiphany that I need to rely on the wisdom of our city council. They have been living here for generations, and they know. I also need to trust and rely on the city's department director team. But even throughout the organization, with whether it's managers, supervisors, team leads, and even your brand new part-time office aide, like you have to rely on other people to lead the organization. Because people expect the city manager to be a leader, but the leader isn't a job title. The leader is it's that attitude, it's that mindset, it's those people that you can put into roles who can do a lot of amazing things. And so, when we had the Bobcat Fire, I mean, yeah, it was crazy, but I could rely on a great fire chief to provide the firefighting response, a great police chief to handle all the law enforcement response. I had a great assistant city manager who ran day-to-day affairs of the city while I was busy with the fire. I mean, it was a team is what it was. So I think that was another really important lesson that I learned is, you're not leaders and managers don't have to be everything. You can really rely on the strengths of others around you to accomplish. And, if it's kind of like a family, if one member of the family is succeeding, we're all succeeding. It's the same way at the city is if one person is leading the charge, I can get behind that person and cheer them on and help them. It's just as if we're all leading the charge together. So
Yeah.
those are some of the lessons that come to mind.
Yeah. Cheerleading is a big one. Yeah.
Well, and as well as anyone, when it's your business, you have to be a big cheerleader.
Right.
But you also have to be right there at the side and not necessarily making all the decisions and directing the work, but people need to see you and feel you in the trenches too.
Right.
And sometimes all you're there to do is roll up your sleeves and say, "Hey, man, what do you need for me to do?" And I think that's an important part of leadership quality that sometimes we forget is managers also have to be followers.
True. Yeah. Yeah. It's 100%. I mean, that whole like misconception of you're just sitting around and just telling people what to do, it's really getting down the trenches, and 100% agree.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned parks earlier. So in terms of enhancing public spaces, you're working on some exciting projects to improve the library, community center, and rec park, right? Recreational park. Can you share your vision for these projects and their impact in the community that you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if Monrovia has been an amazing place for 140 plus years, and I think that I get to come in at a time when it's exciting. The city has made a lot of investments in itself, in infrastructure and parks and grounds. Businesses are making tons of investments into themselves, and there's still a bumpy road for a lot of folks still. We have a lot of challenges, and I think those are always fun to work through. How do we address housing? Our school district's going through some challenges, but I think really what Monrovia's future, how do we make Monrovia better? In addition to addressing all these challenges, I think the way we make it better is improving the community, improving those public spaces. People love their parks here in Monrovia. And so the city has made it very clear it wants to invest in our parks. So Canyon Park, we're less than 2 months away from reopening after the flood. That's almost $25 million in a brand new Canyon Park. Most of that money will all be paid for through insurance proceeds, state and federal grants, or disaster reimbursements. We've been underway, getting ready to break ground on a library enhancement project, which is basically going to create a blended space between the library building and the park outside. So how can we create more openness to where you can go from inside the library to outside into library park seamlessly? I think it's important that we blend those two. The Soteros-Sinaishi Park is one that I'm really passionate about. We received a small, about 8,200 square foot land dedication as part of the Chick-fil-A and Starbucks project over on West Huntington. The Hale Corporation donated us this land, and we've been designing a park, the first that I know of in the area, to honor a Japanese American who was a Monrovian. The family has a really amazing story, and we've used that story to create the design of the park. It's been a recipe for state and national awards recently, that we are blending the city's history with contemporary park design needs and community engagement. A lot of community members really rallied around this concept of Soteros-Sinaishi Park, so it's going to be amazing. We'll break ground here in a couple months on that one too. And then I think community center and the rec park are our next two big projects. We're well underway with design. We're spending $2 million designing the future community center, which is going to be an amazing space. And then Rec Park, that one's a little bit easier because that one's more just enhancing everything that's there. We might do some small layout changes in certain areas, but the park is a great open space, and we really just want to improve the lighting, improve the walkways, improve the ball fields. So we're not really making significant changes to the facilities on site. There are some, but it's really just investing significantly in that park for the next 100 years. We just completed Rotary Park Playground. Our next playground project will probably be that we haven't talked about. Will probably be the Kiwanis Park at Grand Avenue. That playground needs a serious upgrade too. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to create these community spaces where everyone can enjoy, and it's really sending this message about how much we cherish our parks and open spaces, and because they're communal gathering places. It's been a great undertaking by the city for the last couple of years.
For these types of projects, like how do you engage the community, or how does a community member engage if they're interested in getting involved?
So there's really a combination of ways. So the number one thing I encourage everybody to do is sign up for the weekly City Manager update. That way, any kind of pertinent information, upcoming meetings, plans for projects, they can get all that stuff as we send it out weekly to the public. When we're actually talking about a specific park, we do a lot of outreach with all of our stakeholders. We go door to door and meet with the neighbors. We hold public meetings at our different commission levels and even city council. We post plans on the website and ask for survey responses. What I think is really important is we take that feedback and we actually use it to guide and design the project. So, when kids are saying, "Hey, I think it'd be fun to have this kind of slide or this kind of feature," like, "Hey, let's go include that." That way, we can actually go build something that members of the public like actually had a hand in, and it was actually their idea. And I think what it's done is it's created a little bit more inclusivity, but maybe more importantly, like ownership and pride.
Yes.
If you ask people who live around the Lucinda Garcia Park project over on West Olive, like they will tell you that they felt like that was their park, like that they opined. And there might be one resident over here who says, "Well, how come we didn't build public restrooms at that park? Because there are none." Well, because we held multiple public meetings and the neighborhood asked us not to do them. And it's like, it would be nice to have bathrooms, but when the residents who live there who are most impacted made these requests, and it was a universal request from all of them, we want to honor that. And I think as a resident who lives there, you feel listened to and heard when the city is taking your advice and feedback and actually using it to guide the project.
Yeah, 100%, especially about the ownership piece.
Yeah.
That goes a long way. Yep.
Well, we even did something maybe a little, because restrooms, I think we agree, even, as a parent of young kids, like I wish we had a restroom too.
Yeah.
But like, here's another bit of feedback is residents were concerned about the new LED lighting. And, well, hey, we want to have this new playground. We want it to be well lit, but we don't want it to be super dark all night long. So we use these custom ballasts to where the lights automatically dim after a certain hour. And then when someone walks out there, they flip on. It's got nice sensors on it. And so, they're a little bit more expensive. But what it did is it allowed us to address concerns, feedback, make sure we had proper lighting. And for security reasons, if someone's back there after hours and they're walking, the lights flip on and the neighbors are going to know and see. And, it's working through those challenges, but using that engagement process to gain that info.
Yeah. Especially that park. It's like wedged right in between that community, like really close. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, and many of our parks have little nuances like that. Like you think of Kiwanis Park at Grand Avenue, we kind of got this upper portion, a lower portion. That lower portion area is a lot of residents who all their backyards are adjacent to that park. Right. They're definitely impacted back there. Right. And so an old city like Monrovia, we got a lot of wonky, issues like that we work through.
Yeah. All right. So looking ahead, what are your goals for Monrovia in the coming years, both professionally as a city manager and on a personal level as a resident raising a family here?
Oh, good question. So as a, personal goals, like city manager personal goals, I want to see a AAA bond rating. It's, what that essentially is The city has strong reserves, good spending practices to where a different what we call bond rating agencies say, hey, the city is in a strong financial position, and if we ever had to issue debt, we're going to give them the highest rating, which results in the lowest cost to residents. It's kind of like a credit score,
Okay.
but it's something that is important to me. My very first week on the job, City Monrovia was listed on the state auditor's list of top 10 most fiscally stressed cities in the state. The report, I don't think, was a complete accurate snapshot of the city's finances,
Uh-huh.
but it was it was kind of a, oh my gosh, what did I get into? And it's been a priority for so many years that we manage prudently. And I think from the city staff, the council, city treasurer, many community members, we've really started this down this path years ago. And even through COVID and recovering, and even through multiple emergencies, that's been a really important priority for ours. I want to see us continue to invest in our infrastructure. So, we set aside money every year. We're going to replace portions of our roadways. We're going to upgrade facilities. We want to continue to make those investments over time. I think a lot of these big projects, I want to see Canyon Park back to a full operation, which also includes new operational activities. We're going to have a new, it's a little seating area. It sits about 150 people. Now we can do some amazing lessons and demonstrations, and even you could do an event. If you want to get married in Canyon Park now, you can do that. So it even provides us some new opportunities. I want to be ready to break ground on the community center if we're not broken ground already. I want to see the J.C. Penney building, former Fourth Dimension, the one we bought on Myrtle Avenue. I want to see that building fully occupied with city offices and maybe some of our different partnership groups. And of course, my hope is that some of the little hurdles we've seen with for some of our businesses, inflation going through the roof, some of these impacts of, eggs today are $8 a dozen up at Vaughn's. We want to see. I would love to see some of those prices come back to normal. And I think lastly, housing has been a really it's been a major focus of the city. We've been doing a lot of work to build housing in Monrovia. Right now, we're number 6 in the county of building permits issued. So we're building more than most cities in the county. We want to build more affordable housing. We want to continue to push creativity and solutions that work for Monrovia. So I think those are some key goals that I have, as a resident. I'm super proud to live here. Like I'm a, and I say that very humbly. Like, this is a great community, and I want to be here, and I want people to feel that same level of pride. I want that to be transcendent in everything they do, from the way they are at school to the way people are at work to the way they behave when they're, it's Friday night street fair. We want to see people taking serious ownership on this community because they're all part of it. And I want my kids to feel the same way. I want them to feel tremendous pride in being in Monrovia, and especially as my oldest son moves into high school now, and the kids are participating in extracurriculars. I mean, to say I'm a Monrovian, you should feel humbled and proud at the same time.
Awesome. Okay, so I have one last question, but before I ask it, I'm going to point people to the website, monroviaca.gov. But you mentioned earlier how they can sign up for the City Manager newsletter. Is that also found there on the main website?
Yep. If you go to our main website, just look for City Manager's office, one of the departments, and you'll see City Manager's update. It's a very easy to subscribe button. Anyone has any questions, they can always reach out to me directly. I also hand out my personal cell phone. In Monrovia, if you got an out street light, your neighbor's dog's barking and driving you crazy, and you don't know whom to call, give me a call. But the best way to sign up for regular information is City Manager Update. You can get on the website.
Okay. So my last question is for anyone that's interested in going down the path of city manager or something related to that. What does what is one piece of advice you would give them?
Ooh. So it's a tough job, and I don't think it's for everyone. But what I will tell you is public service is the most rewarding and noble career I could have hoped for. To help people every single day is just a wonderful blessing. Government can be a source for good in this world. And I think when we see so many examples of bad government, to me, it's just this constant opportunity for us to shine and show people what good governance can look like. And when you're helping your neighbor, when you're helping your school, when you're whatever it is, so even if it's not a city manager, and maybe you want to be a police officer, or a firefighter, or a teacher, or a hospital worker, there's so many careers in public service that I think are just noble and wonderful. And the city has lots of internships, lots of introductory positions where people can come and learn more about it. I think that's the one thing that I'd encourage people to do, is just to go dabble, go find something that to do, and see if you like it. One of the things I love about our Yes internship program is get us youth employment. We're putting kids in their roles here at the city, partnering with different businesses, partnering with different nonprofits. We just want to get them exposed to everything so that they can kind of gauge what works best for them. And that's how I started. I started out as an unpaid intern myself, and I think it's just a great way to find your bearings on what you want to do for a career.
Awesome. That's solid, right? Especially the public service piece. So everybody, we've been talking to Dylan Feik, City Manager of Monrovia, and an important pillar in our community, right? I came in a little bit before him. I got to experience the pre-Dylan and the post-Dylan. I can truly say, you've been doing a tremendous job. I'm really proud to call you my city manager as well, both as a business and a resident. So Dylan, where are you most active? Where can people find you?
Blaze Pizza. Anybody knows me knows I love Blaze Pizza.
Okay.
So I'm here in the community. I live and play within about 5 miles of Monrovia.
Okay.
This is my home. They're going to see me dropping off, picking up kids at school.
Uh-huh.
They're going to see me on Myrtle Avenue tonight. I'm not quite sure if I'm going out this Friday night, but the best way to find me is you're going to see me out here in the community. You'll see me up on the trails.
Yeah.
You'll see me, at the parks on weekends. And I hope people, as they get to know me, reach out, say hi, introduce yourself. People are starting a new business. Call me and tell me about your business so I can help, or I can at least, be a contact where if you need help, you can call me. But I appreciate the kind words, Victor. It's great to get to know you originally when you were working in a leadership role at the chamber, as a community leader, business leader. It's been great to work with you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on the podcast. Love to come back anytime. Love to give referrals for other people to join anytime. But I appreciate all you do and let me speak about myself for the last little bit.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Raw Spotlight podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.